So, let me see if I've got this right. You're not really a pony, but something called a human being from another planet called Earth, where non-sentient ponies exist in another universe. And your name isn't Stardust Balance, along with the whole rite of passage thing yesterday being a lie. That's right, I confirmed, to the processing dragon, constantly glancing to the closed door for any sign of eavesdropping. In this world, turned you into an Earth Pony because magic doesn't exist where you're from, and some voice inside your head named Spectre is responsible for sending you here, and the real reason you were looking through those magic books was to find a way home. Well, the existence of magic on Earth remains a subjective matter there, but no point or relevance in telling the grasping lizard beside me that. Indeed. But the only way to get back is to listen and do what this voice tells you to do, which starts with making friends and actually thinking of them as friends, with me, Twilight, and the others. I nodded, though I couldn't recall if Spike was included in this task. Unfortunately, I stated dryly, shrugging at the annoyed look he gave me. That seems to be the predicament I find myself in. The irritated expression then morphed into one of wonder. This all sounds so far-fetched, I supplied. Make-believe? Ludicrous? Something you'd hear from a... Awesome! The dragon proceeded to then adopt a posture of a child who just got a brand new bike. The unexpected, yet I should have seen it coming, declaration incited me to frown in confusion at the excited-looking Spike, staring at me as though I was a sight to behold. Excuse me? The ecstatic dragon then gestured with widened arms towards my lying state, eyes glittering in awe as he spoke more loudly than I would have preferred. An alien! We have a real alien living in our house. All this time we've been housing a pony from outer space. I shrugged rather modestly. I've been called a lot of things in my life, but alien? Well, at least he wasn't being insulting about it. This is something that has never happened before in all of Equestria's history. Well, I'm sure there were numerous fanfics out there that would say otherwise, but in real life, honestly, I don't think my brain has even fully processed this whole ordeal yet, I admitted with a chuckle, taking another sip of my drink. But please, keep your voice down, Spike. Yet the lizard, to my exasperation, remained very lively over the fact an extraterrestrial life form was living under the same roof as him. I'm rather taken aback by how accepting Spike was acting over this. Alien that got turned into a pony, living in Ponyville inside our house, and he's also our friend. I might take his action there as squealing. Just wait till Twilight learns about this. And that is where we find the bad news of this little revelation, Spike. I interrupted him firmly, my glare enough to halt his excited mood. It's imperative few are aware of my origins, lest it becomes an inconvenience in my quest. Huh? The lizard tilted his head at me in obvious confusion. But why not just tell Twilight or the others then? Imagine the looks on their faces. Their reactions to the truth is irrelevant, boy. I come off more harshly than I originally intended. The last thing I need is constant questions and migraines. You know as well as I do that this little truth would have Twilight pester me to no end about my home planet and how we Homo sapiens function. Homo what? I sighed at the earnest confusion. Perhaps I should resort to a different approach. Spike, do you want my trust? The lizard nodded heatedly. Then do this one favor for me. Do not, I repeat, not tell a single breathing soul about my true origins. The less anyone else knows about this, the better. Celestia and Luna already know about this ordeal, and it should have stayed that way, and it would be unwise to let this revelation go out to the public. But Twilight can help. I don't need her help, I countered bluntly. Please, Spike. The only way to get off Equestria is to start establishing trust with others. A lengthy pause as I sat patiently waiting for the hesitant dragon to reach a decision. I was only telling Spike all of this because it would be foolish of me to pretend all I said last night in my moment of facing the bear was glorifying fabrication. Plus, it just felt relieving at least telling someone else of my plight. Spike would always have acted more excited and awed than sympathetic. Geez, Stardust, I don't know, the baby dragon finally replied, rubbing the back of his head in sudden worry. I'm not sure if I can keep something this huge hidden for long without Twilight getting suspicious. Well, at least you're being honest, I sighed. What to do? Oh! Sitting back calmly, resting my hoofs together, while wincing a little at the movement, I adopted a business-like tone that will buy me the uncertain lizard's silence more. All right, Spike, how about then, in return for your silence, you share half your chores with me? What? In addition, I can cover for you sometimes here and there, if you ever feel like taking a nap. The drop of his jaw was quite amazing. Not all the time, keep in mind, and we will tell Twilight that I merely decided to help around the place a little bit more. The sight was just getting comical now. Stardust, you don't have to do any of that. I mean, alien or not, you're still a guest. I promise I'll do my best to keep myself quiet. I insist. Besides, spending the day just reading books could only last as entertainment for so long. It won't hurt just to help around the place a little, right? And if you're still hesitant about it, think of it this way. Think of this as a way of expressing our new friendship. One pal helping out another. What do you say? Another pause as I awaited the answer. An adamant feeling of hope rising in me that Spike was sensible enough to keep his secret between us. And I wasn't disappointed. I let out a grateful smile as the dragon finally nodded with a smile of his own. All right, I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a little more help around the house. Plus, I can keep one secret. But you have to do one more thing for me. I raised a brow, hesitantly intrigued. And what might that be? Tell me everything, Spike said confidently, about your homeworld and your ways. Well, I'm not the encyclopedia of the human race, or the entire planet. But I suppose this wouldn't be going too far in winning Spike's silence. All right, but I can't promise to tell you every last detail, such as the biology of humanity. But I'll indulge you, as long as you keep your end of the bargain, that you don't tell Twilight. Don't tell Twilight what? Both her heads snapped to the direction of the opening door. The purple unicorn in question with a bowl lifting beside her, observing us curiously. Both Spike and I quickly exchanged glances. No doubt we were trying to come up with an excuse. In conclusion, I blinked when a small lizard then proclaimed that I told Stardust the truth behind the Ursa Minor he fought last night. Well, at least it's a guarantee for now. He was keeping his word. But truth? What truth? The mare shook her head in exasperation while approaching us. The smell of something edible inside a bowl floating beside her. Oh, Spike. I restrained sighing in relief that Twilight bought the excuse. I'm sorry, Stardust. I didn't want your pride to be hurt. My pride? On the contrary, my dear, Spike was only just starting to tell me about it. Perhaps you'd like to indulge me along with him? At least the subject matter has now changed, but to one I find myself despising later. So do remember, I finished my short speech to the cult pair before me, ignoring their stares of wonder and awe as we were a safe distance from the eavesdropping of the town. You cannot tell a single soul about my origins. Otherwise, I will disappear from this planet altogether. Do you understand the importance of which I am telling you? They both nodded wildly, still shell-shocked over my confirmation of my words from last night. We promise, sir. I suppressed a rolling my eyes as Snail saluted. We won't tell anyone what you really are. Yeah, Mr. Alien, then Snip said. Nobody will ever know what we know. Mr. Alien. Funny, but I nodded my head firmly instead. Good, and please refrain from addressing me with names such as Mr. Alien or anything else that could give away my secret. Their turn to nod again. Now I don't know what deluded Twilight into believing she has had authorization to issue punishment on the pair of you for awakening the Ursa Minor last night without consulting your parents first. But since logic is evidently a questionable thing of existence around here, I will bestow some other work you two can do to make up for luring a deadly predator to the town. This time with permission from your family. After finally being allowed to leave the bed, insisting to a doubtful Twilight I had fully recovered, my mind resorted immediately to seeking out the two cults who, besides from the informed Spike and disappearing Trixie, knew of my true origins. Aiming to make sure they kept their mouths shut, but Spike had decided to follow me, and I have plenty of speculations as to why. The two cults looked at each other for a moment, as though silently communicating. Do ponies have that trick? It would save me a lot of breath. I usually didn't talk much anyway. But to my surprise and amusement, the two children bowed to me in a courteous respect, the smaller colt speaking for the pair of them. We will do whatever you ask of us, sir, for we are now your humble servants. Humble what now? You are even more awesome than Trixie. At least you're not a liar, the taller one continued. At least I'm not a liar? God damn, these creatures will believe anything I'll tell them. And you fought that Ursa Minor last night with your bare hooves. We will do anything you say for the rest of time, your alienness. A side glance at Spike, who just shrugged at me. Oh, all right. As the first order then, stop calling me anything related to I being not from this world. They grinned enthusiastically and bowed again. Maybe I could get used to this. Very good. Now return to cleaning up that carriage. You never mentioned anything about disappearing if someone tells the truth about you, Spike stated confusedly. As soon as the pair of the enthusiastic colts were heading back to town and out of our field of vision, I gave a shrug. Well, if it works in keeping their mouths shut. With that, I also began walking down the same path, intending to return to the library now that the job was complete, wishing I would stop wincing at every step I took. Okay, I wasn't fully healed just yet, but my personal injuries mean little compared to making sure no one breathes a word about my origins. And I doubt the far-off gone Trixie, despite all the boasting, would bother telling anyone either. I didn't need to look to my right to see the dragon walking in a similar pace. So you just lied to them when they just said you weren't a liar? Yep. Huh. He cast a blinking lizard and amused glance. You seem to be doing that a lot. Lying? He nodded. Well, between you and I, Spike, lying isn't really something I'm accustomed to. Everyone lies, with the exception of Applejack, obviously. But I prefer being honest, truth be told, whether brutal or not. I've only been deceiving the fair ponies of Ponyville to prevent them from discovering my true identity. It was easy to have this conversation as we were out of earshot from anyone, but just to make sure I kept my eyes looking at every possible hiding spot for nearby ponies as we entered the colorful streets. If you haven't confessed about being from another world last night, I might never have believed you then, Spike pointed out. Honestly, I'm surprised how accepting you are of this revelation. Another side look at the contemplative child dragon who was frowning at the sky. Well, something just made me believe your words. I don't know what. Could be the work of that elusive specter. Otherwise, aside from the fact my words last night must have sounded convincing enough to him, what possible reason does this dragon have to believe in a single word coming out of my mouth? Then Spike shook his head and gave a small smile next to me. Oh well, so how are you then? Must be inquiring about my injuries. Rather fine, thank you for asking. I meant with coping from what you were told this morning. Ah, that. Instantly a frown creased my features, my stare now turning to the ground as we walked by multiple ponies of various kinds. Yes, it was a rather blow to my dignity, finding out that Bear was an infant. Understatement of the goddamn century, my reptilian friend. My happiness over the fact my impaired ear somehow repaired itself. Being ripped to shreds by the revelation that monster I fought last night, the thing that terrified me to no ends, was simply an infant. I battled an infant, first a female griffin, then a child bear. The world was trying to make me hate myself further. I would never even consider the thought of engaging a child, no matter what creature it was, in combat. Cheer up, Stardust, a supportive voice belonging to Spike said beside me. Look on the bright side. At least you didn't seriously hurt dear Ursa Minor. You were only defending yourself and the others. Doesn't make me feel any less dirty, I confessed, with a long-awaited sigh. But yeah, it could have been worse, I suppose. And Twilight did stop you before things could have gone worse. That she did, and I will thank her for it later, just as I thanked her earlier today for not only providing with breakfast in bed, but also some equipment to help me pass the time. Fictional storybooks, stacks of paper for me to write on, and some quills with a bottle of ink. The purple unicorn claimed the pile of books in question were those she personally considered to have the best stories in the entire library, needlessly apologizing if I didn't find them as good, and then needlessly blushing slightly when I told her I trusted her judgment. So, the dragon broke me from my thoughts as we continued back to the treehouse. If your real name isn't Stardust Balance, I quickly looked both ways and behind, pleased that no other ponies was within hearing range. Then, if you don't mind me asking, what is it? I found myself seriously contemplating the question. I guess it wouldn't do much harm to share such information. There wouldn't be any consequences for it, I suppose. Truth be told, I've been getting used to my cover-up name. I've almost forgotten my true identity. What the hell. In the grand scheme of things, it really didn't mean anything. Well, since we're friends, there's no harm in indulging your curiosity. Halting and turning fully to the dragon, I let out a small smile and bowed politely. Jack Edward James Wright, resident of England and visitor from the planet Earth. Well, more like held prisoner from, but still, a pleasure to meet you, Spike. The dragon shook my outstretched hoof enthusiastically. The pleasure is all mine, Jack. Please, just call me Stardust during my stay here. It helps me blend in. Plus, I've been growing rather fond of the name. I requested, feeling a sense of delight that the lizard was obliging like this. Just have to be careful with this thread of trust we have created together, not put too much on the line. For now, I've only told the curious Spike that I was from another world, and nothing more. As far as I can tell, there wasn't a single reason to tell him, or the monarchs for that matter, the truth about their world. As tempting as the idea was, I had no need to give them all desperation that their world was simply pure fiction. I know. If it's all fiction, how am I standing on the very ground of Equestria? Well, truthfully, half of my mind remains convinced I've gone completely insane. And I'm right now inside a mental asylum. It's still so hard to take in, Spike then said, his voice returning to that awe-struck tone from this morning. The pair of us resuming the walk. That we have a resident from outer space. It starts making sense thinking about it, from the different ways you react around stuff like you've never seen them before. Or that one incident of your first trip to the library's bathroom. I thought we agreed never to speak of that incident again, Spike. I interrupted with a forced smile, inwardly wincing at the unpleasant memory. Huh. Oh yeah. It was funny how long it took Twilight to clean up the mess. Spike! Ah! Are you okay? The then concerned Spike inquired to my son coughed, and I nodded after the sensation quickly resided. Odd, I must have choked on my saliva or something. Or maybe that wasn't the case. What are you looking at? Oh. The baby dragon let out a gasp of surprise at the sight above, as dark smoke had been covering the sky without our notice. A storm? Was someone's house on fire? No, for now it looked to be only covering Ponyville, and my eyes quickly followed a cloud of smoke to the source, an icy-looking mountain far off from the town. Evidently this hasn't happened before. Not while I first arrived, anyhow. Why is there smoke coming from that mountain? A good question, Spike, I replied plainly. Could it be a volcano? Let's not start making assumptions out loud and begin a town panic. Well, there's one way of finding out, I said, slowly taking my intrigued eyes from the smoking hill of rock and towards the direction of the treehouse. Come on, let's go back and... What do you think you're doing? My body then started to groan in irritation as the pain from the blunt Ursa's attack last night was still there. Doesn't he know I'm still wearing bandages underneath my cape? I glared in distaste as the dragon had suddenly decided to climb on my back. Well, we're going back to the house, right? He shrugged at my deadpan stare, but I was having none of it. I don't recall in any part of our deal where you were free to hitch a ride on my back at any time. And quite frankly, I have no obligation to carry your lazy arse around. With that statement, I sat down, and the pouting lizard slid off my back, flinching as I felt my insides yelp in protest. The dragon let out a sharp, loud burp, and I forced my aching self to duck as the green smoke that morphed into a letter floated above us. Quickly catching it, I looked at the lizard and nodded seriously, having an inkling what the contents within the royal paper were about. Listen up! Smoke is spreading all over Equestria. All over Equestria? I raised a perplexed brow from the other end of the bridge and glanced up at the covering cloud in question. Is the name of this world also code for just around Ponyville? Because I don't see the smoke heading in any other direction. But don't worry, Twilight continued after the gasping in exchange. Warriors of the ponies, I've just received a letter from Princess Celestia informing me that it is not coming from a fire. And how would Celestia know that? I refrained from asking, while the residents on the other side all collectively sighed in relief. It's coming from a dragon! Morris gasps of shock, while a strike of surprise and intrigue hit me. But I urge you all not to panic. This problem will be dealt with as soon as possible. Well, aren't you the pony pleaser? I called out humorously as the purple unicorn side-glared at me in turn. A dragon, as in full-size deadly beast with a craving for hunger and destruction. This should be interesting. What in the name of all things Cinnamon Swirl is a full-grown dragon doing here in Equestria? Sleeping, according to Princess Celestia. He's taking a nap. His snoring's what's causing all this smoke. I heard Domain 6 discussed about the beast behind me, while my gaze was meanwhile set on the outside of the window, where the blank smoke was getting worse and worse by every hour or so. A dragon's napping is the cause behind this inconvenience, huh? Well, on the bright side, at least that pesky sunlight won't be bothering my eyes for a while. And yet there was that foreboding sense of danger from the previous night, rearing its ugly head again. Well, right now I'm wary of trusting my fear instincts after that had me recklessly fight a baby Ursa. I'll tell you what you're meant to do. Give them the boot. I sighed in expression from hearing the Blue Pegasus' less than ideal suggestion. I scoffed loudly. Oh, yes, because violence is the ultimate solution for everything. Let me know how that works out for you, Rainbow Dash. Provided you don't become roasted Pegasus first. I let out a hidden smirk at hearing the pony's grumble of displeasure. Stardust has a point. We need to instead encourage him to have his nap somewhere else. Princess Celestia has given us this mission, and we must not fail. If we do, Equestria will be covered up in smoke for the next 100 years. Right. Well, have fun with that, I said, stretching my limbs if my body wasn't still injured. Turning to the 6 ponies. Your suggestion is a sound one, Twilight, but pardon me when I express doubts about that negotiating with a giant killer dragon will work easily, too. You don't know that. He might be a reasonable lizard. I snorted. Perhaps in any other kid's show, and certainly. Anyway, girls, go back to your homes and gather some supplies. We've got a long journey ahead of us. Meet back here in an hour. And once again, I noted, with a tinge of bafflement, the student of the most powerful Alicorn in existence goes off to face the dangerous threat instead of the mentor. Why doesn't Celestia just handle this situation? She's the ruler of Equestria, yes? Alright, so why doesn't she just order the dragon to sleep elsewhere? If it was as grave as Twilight was projecting here, then why can't the Alicorn Princess deal with this matter personally? Or maybe this is just a test for her royal student, and I'm thinking too deep into it. Nothing new on the ladder, then. After the 5 other mares left, the last being a hesitant Fluttershy, that was when I decided it was time to head back to my room. I have some planning to do myself, but a sudden voice halted me from advancing further. Stardust! I turned to the purple unicorn who said my temporary name, glancing at me rather uncertainly while preparing some stuff into her travel bags. I don't think you need to be reminded, but you're... Let me guess, I cut her off with amusement, smiling slightly. I'm far too injured, and would only be a hindrance to the group in your rush to prevent the smoke from covering the skies. I know, I wasn't planning on coming with you anyhow. Twilight shrugged apologetically. I know it sounds like something you don't want us to miss out on, but I'm sorry. What? I smirked at her, surprised, blinking. I'm not stupid, Twilight, nor as prideful as you believe. Don't worry, I can take care of the library while you're gone. Her drop jaw was just hilarious to see. That's very immature of you, Stardust. I shrugged while she gave a small smile of relief. I'm so glad. I was worried for a minute there that you would make things difficult. Oh, believe me, my dear, I try my best not to make things difficult. Only when it needs to be. I nodded in farewell to her. Take care. Let me know of the aftermath. I will. I heard her vow behind me while I ascended the staircase, heading straight to my room. Like I said, time to do some planning of my own. End of part 1.